Montana's news leader. This is the MTN 530 News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ Riesinger. On this date, 1 year ago, the pandemic changed everything when Montana confirmed its first COVID case. Last March, we had no way to predict how our lives would be changed. Today, we know 500,000 Americans have lost their lives, including 1,403 here in Montana. We've seen 101,000 cases here, and more than 4,600 people have been hospitalized. But the year anniversary also comes at a time of hope. Case counts and hospitalizations are down dramatically. Vaccines are being administered. As of today, more than 333,000 doses are in arms and more than 126,000 Montanans are fully immunized. The U.S. is administering nearly 2 million shots a day with enough vaccine supply on the way for every adult in the country to get vaccinated by the end of May, if not sooner, according to President Biden. But tonight, a reminder the pandemic is far from over as Yellowstone County reports its 241st person to die from COVID-19 related illness. Tonight, our Andrea Lutz takes an in-depth look at the impact on community leaders tasked with keeping us safe.
For each of us, the COVID-19 pandemic struck differently, but just as impactful. A year ago, society was on the cusp of something bigger than all of us. And as leaders in our community were tasked with some of the heaviest decisions of all, we're looking back and learning more about why decisions were made and what personal struggles they endured. With a vaccine in the mix and cases on the decline, Montana has lifted many COVID-19 restrictions in recent months. Yellowstone County looking much better with as little as 15 new cases a day compared to hundreds of new cases just months ago. But first, let's reflect back to March of 2020. It's a month many of us remember quite well. On March 9th of 2020, the Dow fell over 2,000 points, halting trading. On March 11th, the World Health Organization officially declared a worldwide pandemic. And it was that same day that the first COVID case connected to Montana was discovered in a part-time resident reported in Maryland. One day later, Governor Steve Bullock declared a state of emergency. But it was March 13th of 2020 where the first COVID-19 case was declared in Yellowstone County. It's a day Health Officer John Felton remembers quite well.
I was in a parking lot at Wendy's. In fact, I can just about tell you the parking space I was in. And my cell phone rang, and it was the state health department saying, "We have our first cases." And my reaction was sort of a mixed reaction of, we've been waiting, and so now we're going to do something. And so there's sort of that, the anticipation was over and we were going to do something, kind of mixed with, but what are we going to do?
That next Monday, Felton issued his first health order, shutting down bars and restaurants by 8 p.m. Even back then, he said it was the most difficult decision he's ever had to make.
I would have to titrate risk in my mind. If we do those things, we reduce the risk of spread of disease. But we increase the risk related to economic vitality and social connectedness and those sorts of things.
And his decisions were met with much criticism throughout the county.
I got a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls and a few letters. And I think what I came to is, in my position, in the way I view this job, I don't have the luxury of picking one piece and saying, this is all that matters. As I said, all the good choices are gone. So every option hurts everybody to some degree. And what I try to do is figure out what's the least harmful.
But the virus was already rapidly spreading across Montana. That's when Superintendent of School District 2 Greg Upham issued a letter to parents with a number of measures the district would take to combat the spread of COVID-19.
I can remember sitting down, having dinner and watching the 5:30 news, 6:30 news, and watching it kind of come this way, almost like a winter storm, right? It was in Great Falls and now it's in Helena and now, it's on its way.
And it was. You might remember March 14th, that's when state basketball tournaments were halted on the very night of championships. March 15th, Montana schools were ordered to close.
I reached out to the medical community immediately. Was I worried about the safety and health of our students? Oh, absolutely. Was I worried about the safety of our staff, our teachers in front of our students every day, the size of our schools, all of that?
Looking back, each of our community leaders were tasked with difficult decisions to make through the course of that first year of this pandemic. Did you have that internal struggle at all?
Boy, I'll tell you, Andrea, just asking that question, I get emotional. By far and away, the most difficult decision in my 34 years of being in public education was a decision to go back in live instruction.
And I'd go from people saying, you've got to shut things down. You've got to close the schools. People are going to get sick. People are going to die. It's going to overload the hospitals. And when you do that, then it flips, and those people are quiet. Now the people are saying, you're going to ruin small business. You don't care about the community.
All while dealing with their own personal struggles with the virus many of us never even knew about.
You've seen health officers in Montana and public health people all over the country leaving their jobs, getting threatened. I really honestly didn't pay much attention to the ones that just sort of said, you're a dirty so-and-so. There were several that we did report to law enforcement because they were specific enough that they made me nervous.
As a superintendent overseeing the largest school district in the state, I had a family member who was in the hospital with the COVID people dying and caring for them, and then a son who he and his wife were pregnant, and the COVID pieces. So I was feeling it.
The entire month of March 2020, 31 days where everything as we knew it had changed. Now, with 10% of Yellowstone County's population presumed infected with the virus, it's likely many of us have known someone who got very sick or has even died from this virus, meaning our own understanding of the virus itself also shifted dramatically throughout the last year. In Billings, I'm Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
And you can watch the full interviews that Andrea did with Health Officer John Felton and Superintendent Greg Upham on our website. They're online right now on ktvq.com. President Joe Biden will address the nation coming up at 6 o'clock immediately following our newscast tonight. You can watch the CBS News coverage here on KTVQ or watch with the KTVQ streaming app on Roku and other devices. One of the greatest sources of hope right now, the vaccine, and appointments are now available for the 5th week of the mass vaccination clinic at Metro Park. Riverstone Health opened up the scheduling this afternoon. Those appointments can once again be made at mtreadyclinic.org or by calling 406-651-6596. The clinic runs from Wednesday through Friday next week. Clinic times can be found on our website, ktvq.com. Senator John Tester announced that Montana is set to receive more than 24,000 first doses of the COVID vaccine next week. Well, the Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter here in Billings is celebrating a new partnership. The shelter is teaming up with the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office to house and reunite dogs lost in Billings and across the county. Passing of the leash ceremony took place at the animal shelter, celebrating the new partnership with the Sheriff's Office. The ceremony also highlighted the Rimrock Humane Society's 5 years of service with the shelter.
Any dog owner can attest to this. When your dog goes missing or you get that phone call that your dog is not in your yard or not in your house, it's just like your heart sinks and your family member is lost, and you hit the roads and you start looking. You're kind of in a frantic state of mind at that point of where is my dog and where do I go to look for them. And so we're really hoping that all dogs in Yellowstone County coming to the same location will ease owners' worries or their frantic state of knowing, oh, I know I can go to YELLOWSTONE to look for them, or to Yellowstone Valley Animal Shelter to look for them. It's so important to make those connections. We've been able to reunite dogs that have been lost for years, even here, which is amazing to see, and it fills your heart up with joy.
Well, the shelter wants to remind people that lost pets who have a microchip are reunited almost 90% more often than dogs that don't. Last night, we told you about a major construction project that will get underway this fall on I-90. The I-90 Yellowstone River project will add an extra lane in each direction from the 27th Street interchange in Billings to the Lockwood interchange. 2 bridges and a rail line spur will be reconstructed as part of that project, which isn't expected to be completed until 2024. Well, also in the plans, the redesign of the Lockwood interchange to a diverging Diamond interchange and the widening of I-90 all the way to Johnson Lane. MDT is holding 2 virtual live informational meetings coming up later this month to share details about those projects. Those meetings will be held 2 weeks from today, March 25th, from 11:30 in the morning until 1:30 in the afternoon, then from 4:30 until 6:30 p.m. And to register or find out more, we put a link in this story on KTVQ.com. Well, up next on tonight's MTN 530 News here on Q2, the Commissioner of Political Practices drops a complaint against a national group that funded recreational marijuana, and he's not happy about it. We'll have the details coming up. And in sports, Montana Madness marches on with tournament action all around the state. The highlights on the way.
Mark Struck works with us here at Q2 in Master Control, and today he said, just tell everybody it was a pretty sunny day. My work here is done.